right, everybody. Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you all are doing well. Welcome to Midnight Hatter Live, the weekly variety show where we goof off and talk Gundam and gaming. I'm your host, Steven, and joining me, as always, is the Gundam maniac himself, Adam Blue. How you doing, my friend?
Doing good, doing good. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm having a fun week so far. Made a lot of progress on some projects. I
Oh,
just
that's always
posted
good.
that I finished the Bound, whatever
Bound dog.
however you want to pronounce it, the sponsored build from Zeonic Shadow and Zeeg New York. So I'm excited to get
Yeah.
that started. I already have some fun plans for that I'm gonna reveal to you guys shortly.
And was that based on the poll? Did
Yes.
you
Yes. So
Okay, so you got okay,
we
cool.
ran a poll both on YouTube and on Twitter, and the overwhelming majority was Neo Xeon. So
Oh, sweet.
yeah,
That's what I voted for, so
yes, the
nice.
crowd has spoken. But we had some Zeeg New York and some anime accurate representation in the polling as well. But then there was also someone selected other, but then didn't comment what they want. They just
Just
didn't like
other.
the other three options. I guess I don't know.
Make up something.
It's something. But yeah, so as always, welcome from Gundam Explained. If you didn't catch it this morning, Adam dropped a video talking about the Detolf. The
Yeah.
anything is better than the Ludal, right? As far as IKEA furniture goes, no. But yeah, if you guys haven't checked that out yet, after this, definitely go check it out because this is covering, displaying your Gunpla. It's actually a pretty cool Gunpla week for us as far as video content goes and talking about how to improve your Gunpla in ways
Yeah.
that maybe are unorthodox, maybe aren't talked about enough.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it because I think sometimes when you get into a hobby, you feel like there's a certain way to do stuff.
Yeah.
And over time, I've even discovered myself, I don't have to go through all that to get this done. I can do it this way and be just as happy with the end result.
Yeah.
Like one of the main things was I thought, oh, I always had to first top coat with gloss, then panel line, then do the matte. But it really depends on the kit, depends on the
Yeah.
plastic, depends on the detailing. Sometimes you don't really have to do all of that.
Yeah.
um,
The method of panel lining. So
yeah,
yeah, I mean, if you guys have been with Adam and I, you know that we get real deep into the weeds. We do 3D printing, we do resin casting, we've potted some EL wire inside of resin cast parts. Basically, we get a little silly when it comes to customizing Gunpla. But one of the things I realized is that we've never really even covered the basics. So we're kind of running before we walk here, at least as far as our audience is concerned, as far as, people who are just getting into Gunpla, maybe just cutting their teeth as far as customization goes. So hopefully this stream is going to remedy that. We are going to cover some tips and tricks to elevate your Gunpla without necessarily running to the internet and buying something online.
no, that's a good point because I do think when I was first getting into Gunpla, I was seeing all those amazing pictures out there of people's builds, and then I was like jumping to, okay, what is the best thing I need to do, instead of really kind of learning kind of the fundamentals that
Yeah.
don't require spending money that could be used with anything you have at home. Even I found out like makeup products, especially like nail products, happen to cover a lot of that.
This is true. Yeah, I mean, it can be so intimidating out there because there's so much content around making like the best possible World Gunpla Builders World Cup, finalist type deal. But, if you're starting from scratch, you don't really even know where to go, and you could buy like a $200 airbrush and your kit is still going to turn out like crap. So, hopefully
That's right.
we're gonna help alleviate that. And I mean, a couple of weeks ago, you and I talked about how just fatherhood and the idea of losing a bit of that hobby time has really driven me to expand my toolbox, and look into different
Ah,
ways of operating since my usual go-to methods were, I don't want to say taken away from me, but less accessible, right?
sure. Yeah. No,
But
I think that's pretty good because I think that is some sort of skill set you can develop if you're in that position, but these tips will then work for anybody. It's like a
that's what I
beginner
hope.
or someone that has limited time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's like when I introduce these new tools to a person's toolbox, I almost hear someone talking over my shoulder like, Hatter, I don't have a toolbox. Like, you're talking
Yeah.
about tools and I don't have the toolbox yet. So yeah, that I think that this is going to be a fun topic for us, and of
Yeah,
course, chat, jump in and mention anything that you guys, anything that kind of comes to mind when it comes to your basic sort of customizations. Like I said, we're going to cover real base level stuff here, but with two major disclaimers, because I don't want you guys shouting at me about this stuff. No, so one thing, we're not going to cover panel lining because I mean
yeah,
the instruction manuals for most kits tell you to panel line the kit. Like it's
right.
such a
That
given.
crosses that off. Yeah,
It's yeah, it's something that we don't even really need to address. That's kind of that's a step zero, if you will.
yeah.
And then the other thing is, I really do want to put the caveat on this because as someone who does not live near a LHS, local hobby store,
Oh,
I am very cognizant of the fact that not everybody does live close to a local hobby store where they could pick up decal sheets, where they could pick up photo etch
mm,
parts, things like that that you
sure.
would have to order online or you'd have to have shipped from somewhere. And so, what I really want to focus on today are things that you can do with your Gunpla literally today. Like, literally, you can go out and buy some of these things from just like a craft store or heck, Walmart, whatever the case may be. So this is stuff that you can do with things lying around the house.
Good, good, good. Looking forward to this.
Yeah.
And maybe I have some tips that I can offer. I mean, usually I'm learning from you, but you never know.
Well, and so I'm excited to hear what your feedback is on these as well, because as someone who has just recently gotten into the Gunpla hobby,
Yeah.
as far as 2018, it's like
Yep.
you're about as fresh faced as they come, I guess. I don't know. It's
Yeah. No, I think that's true, especially at my age. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's hop into it. We're going to go one by one with these guys. And again, no particular order. I mean, you can do anything, any of these, all of these. I'm actually going to go ahead and hop into a screen share so that I can show you examples of what we're talking about here. So, number one, I think this is the most easy one. This is the one that's in the thumbnail, kit bashing.
Mm.
And this is something that I think a lot of people skip this step. I don't know why, but the idea of taking parts from one kit and slapping them on another is, it seems kind of straightforward, right?
It does, and I wonder if part of it is, like, for me, I don't think of it because I'm wanting to make everything canon.
Right.
But I gotta say, that thumbnail, I was like, "What is that?" And then, like, I have the command. I
Yep.
have that actually, right here, so I have the head. But what body RX-78 II is that? Like, what version?
So this is the Gundam Front Tokyo version of the RX-78. One of the things I really like about it is the slightly paler color profile of it, and it actually
Mm,
has some really amazing panel lines on it, given the age of the kit, and
yeah.
it's a high grade kit, so obviously it's not meant for extreme detail. I would say the only thing that kind of aggravates me about this particular kind of kit is this is the kind of one that has the pauldron is attached to a ball joint, or the pauldron
Oh,
is
okay.
a ball joint that
Yeah.
attaches directly to the shoulder. I generally prefer when the pauldron sits over the top of the shoulder and has like a peg hole through it. But I will say that that actually has its own benefits too, because I was just tinkering with my Master Grade version 2 Zeta, and it has one of those, like the shoulder armor fits over the shoulder, and then it's got a peg that goes through it. And that shoulder armor is always loose. It just dangles, flops. It's terrible. And
Yeah.
that's a Master Grade. You would expect better from a kit like that.
Totally agree. That's a good one. Yeah, yeah, kit bashing can solve a lot of things. So it can solve just like better, like if you see a kit that's kind of the same look, but it does a better job of the engineering or the articulation, you can kit bash that way, or just a certain look you want. But
Yeah.
still, I love this seems like a simple one too, but I love the way it looks. Do you have a name for this? The RX-78 command? I don't know.
That's pretty slick. I mean, I guess if
Okay.
I were to come up with like an in-universe title for this, it really is like a command type GM, but it's a little cooler. One of the things
Yeah,
that
love
and
it.
I'm sure you agree with this because you have a GM command on your desk right now as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, sure do, yep, and I even grabbed my Origin, RX-78 too, and I'm gonna swap the heads and see
Just
what
like
that looks like.
head swapping is one of the easiest ones because generally they're all on ball joints, right? So it always kind
Well,
of works.
that's the thing with the, Origin version, it has its own style head, so I can't
Oh,
really do that. I mean, I could
yeah.
easily get something, but
Noodle something on there.
you know what? That looks cool, but it's that body type of that RX-78 too just looks so good.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
and sometimes I think that the origin kits probably are not as compatible with other high grades as,
yeah,
just fellow generations. But yeah, I mean, one of the things that I appreciate about this kit in particular is, most RGM models do not have a crotch piece, for lack of a better term. They have just
yeah,
the solid two panel front skirt. So this kind of gives it a little bit more of a fully realized uh, look to it.
yep.
But yeah, I just think it's pretty sweet looking.
Yeah, I am sold. Like, I know this is about kit bashing, but just what you've come up with here is like just a sick looking mobile suit.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that always drove me nuts about the GM Command kits, the high grade ones, is that they're
Yeah,
a little short. Like, I think it's like they have stumpy feet or like flat feet, and so they end up being a little shorter than most other kits.
yeah, that's interesting. It looks like from what I'm seeing too, torso is just a shorter, smaller torso, especially where the abdomen is. There's not an extra part to that, so
Yeah.
even putting it, yeah, it seems, yeah, the legs are a little short, and the thigh compared to the bottom part of the leg. That's interesting.
Yeah, and again, if you guys know me, you know that I am so I'm like a woman on Tinder. I am so prejudiced against short mobile suits. It's one of the reasons that I love UC Gundam and not, late UC Gundam. But
Oh,
no, I'm just playing around.
that's
But
funny.
yeah, I mean, it bothers me sometimes when I have kits that are out of proportion with one another, and so
Yeah,
that's always bothered me about the GM command. So we have our
yeah,
I like Rogue New types RGM 80 GM command type. That's because it really does look kind of like the RX 81 line almost.
yeah, yeah, because of the proportions and the panel lining, like you said. It's a little more of that modernization to it.
Yeah, it's like a
Love it.
Gundam Junior.
Yeah, there you go.
So the second tip I want to offer, and this is one that we're going to get into a little bit of the painting, a little bit of coloring, detailing. So this
Ooh,
is the high grade Turn A Shin Gundam. Anyone who is familiar with this kit knows that the front chest plate here is actually a solid piece and it's cast in solid blue, which means these little gray panels, I painted those in by hand, and all of the little
wow.
details here, these red dots and the V, I guess it's not a V fin, but V graphic, whatever, the Turn A graphic on the
Yeah,
forehead, all of
yeah,
these are just detailed in, just a little hand brush painted. And these are always easy to fill in because they're kind of shallow panel lines anyway. These would be things that you would panel line, I guess, technically, but I thought they looked cooler in red and, that green.
yeah,
So, yeah, you
yeah.
don't have to paint a kit 100% of the way, but just a little detail up.
Yeah, just yeah, little parts where you see there's little circles or something. Sometimes if you just I'm trying to see if I have any near me, or it's more than just the panel lining, but not really. I guess like with this RX-78 too, where I put like the gold in the joints and the silver
Yeah,
on the guns, and even on the backpack, I put like the chrome on the thruster, and like that's just a little thing where I didn't paint this. Now I did put a top coat, but I didn't paint it.
right. You
But
want to
oh yeah,
seal it
like
up for sure.
on the shield too, I love just putting the chrome on the little divots there. It just,
Absolutely.
even though that was
Little
barely anything
pops.
I had to do, and it's with what, okay, you were gonna show a Sharpie.
I
I
was
think,
gonna.
yeah, the
Oh no, what
Sharpies,
was your?
the Gundam marker,
Oh yeah,
which I think
Gundam
the
marker.
Sharpie's kinda like the same thing anyway. Those things are so fun to use
Yeah,
and do
I
such
think
a
the
good job.
number one investment you can make as a Gunpla builder is a silver Sharpie or any metallic color Sharpie.
Yeah.
So this is a metallic green that I typically
Wow.
will use for mono eyes sometimes. So like instead of using the green foil, for
Yeah.
instance, I've got my high grade Zazabi here, instead of using the green foil sticker, oh yeah, look at that. It
Wow.
actually catches the light pretty well. This is
Yes, it
actually this
does.
Sharpie right
Oh,
here.
wow.
So yeah,
Did you happen to do it on the gun also? Or does it have a sensor?
this one does not have like doesn't have a
Oh, okay.
scope on it or anything. So,
Yeah, scope. There you go.
but yeah, I mean, it's another great example. Putting it.
You know what? To add on to that, even though I do now think that method you just showed is better than those green stickers they come with, like, I'm now gonna go buy some of the green metallic Sharpies. I
Oh
didn't
yeah,
even think about that. Something I would do though is if I needed to add some details, maybe I didn't have the green metallic sensor, I would cut out the little pieces from that, the leftover stickers they'd have, and I would just add that on to different parts, even if I messed up the sticker or lost the sticker, like with the tweezers, and I'm trying to, and then it just like goes flying somewhere. And then like later I find it like on my chest, like right here, I'm like, what? But no, yeah, that's fun. But I gotta see, I do like the idea of the marker, the metallic marker.
yeah.
Totally.
Anything typically it's like what sticker, water slide decal, and then paint slash marker, right? Is like that's
Yeah,
the the tier list of what looks the best.
yeah.
But you can get away with some great looking stickers, and you've kind of changed my mind about that a lot because with a good coat of top coat, a lot of stickers can look really good.
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes I've noticed too, even if it's a gloss or a matte, it can help diffuse or brighten, I guess, depending on what you're trying to get.
For sure.
Sometimes, like there was a time where the visors on some kits, the visors, even though they're see through, they're too plasticky,
Right.
and I forget if it was a matte or a satin that I used, but it helped the visor look more, I don't know, realistic. I don't know how uh, to explain like the translucent LCD screen type thing. I don't know, instead of like just plastic. So,
Yeah, no, and I think you can get away with that effect sometimes with like if you've ever used automotive buffing polish, they usually use that to
oh,
fix oxidation on your headlights. If you use some of that and you
oh,
rub it on, a clear plastic, like a clear acrylic, you can get rid of some of that fogginess and give it a little bit of sheen. So it depends, whether you want to go a little bit more with a matte finish and add that grit to it, or if you want to polish it and make it, as smooth as
that's pretty
glass, you
good.
can do that too.
Yeah, to get make it. I wonder if there's a way to kind of offset that plasticky to more of a glass look.
I
But
think that that's
real
possible.
quick, Rogue is saying that they're actually coming out with new EX markers for that very purpose. So I guess that is becoming more popular for
Yeah.
people to
See?
use the markers instead.
But
That's
again,
cool.
that's one of those things where it's like if you don't have access to a local hobby shop that carries these types of things, I'm always looking for the option that I can pick up from Walgreens.
You know what's very interesting, even at my local hobby shop, and it's a Hobby Lobby, they actually had Gundam markers for a matte and gloss. So I just picked it up, and that actually helped me when I had to fix some paint issues or something I was fixing. I think it was where I glossed and then I put the panel lining, then I had to fix some of it, and then I was able to go back over
Little
with the gloss
smudge.
and you wouldn't even tell. So,
Yeah, I mean, even some of the big box hobby stores like a Hobby Lobby, I've seen them start to carry like the Tamiya weathering sets, which is pretty cool.
yeah,
Still no water slide decals, so again,
yeah.
the photo etch parts and the water slide decals, we're gonna leave those off of the list. But you did bring up a good point that is gonna segue nicely into my next tip:
Okay. Drum roll.
top coats
Oh,
and
there you
rattle
go.
cans in general. So if you are just getting into painting and you don't have an airbrush and you don't want to wait 6 weeks to buy one online, you can get some pretty impressive results with just a rattle
Yeah.
can. This custom Eric Blanc Zaku 2,
Mm.
I literally this is the exact paint that I used was well, not red obviously. I used grape, but it is the satin finish.
Satin?
Yep,
Oh,
satin finish Rust-Oleum, and it's a paint and primer in one, so I didn't have to prime it prior to. But
wow.
I'm going to try and eliminate some of this glare here so that we can actually see the finish on the kit.
No, that's one I've seen you show off every once in a while, and the thing that pops out to me is the color and the finish. Like, it's I guess maybe it's because it's satin or whatever. there's something about it where it just looks uh,
It
so
looks
good.
a little more metal, I think.
Yeah.
And not just like heavy metal, but it
Yeah.
looks like it's made of metal. But
Right,
yeah,
it's like it's not too matte where it's a rougher look to it, you
man, the
know? Yeah.
autofocus on this is killing me. I'm gonna have to drop the camera down here, get a little tighter focus angle so that we can actually see some of these
Yeah, it's
details.
not wanting to focus.
Autofocus
There we
is the
go.
enemy of all Gunpla streamers.
Yeah. I was there for a second. Oh, and then the eye, that mono eye too.
Yeah.
That looks
So
so
this is
good.
actually using it's a combination of the satin was the color and then the Krylon matte finish top coat. Now the one thing I will say is always be aware of how your chemicals are going to interact. Always use some plastic spoons or something to test because I will tell you now that your fancy Tamiya panel line color here is going to turn to absolute crap when you put some of this on it. It's going to just start bleeding all over the place. So it's just one of
Oh,
those things. You always want to test what you're using before you put it
yeah.
directly onto a kit. But,
And
that's
which, kit was that? Was that just a standard high grade Zaku 2
this was
or
the Zaku 2 high
oh,
mobility,
high
the Johnny
mobility.
Ridden type. And what I actually
Okay.
did, these are 3D printed shoulder
Yeah,
pauldrons.
I could tell on the right, you could barely see that geometry. I was like, "Hmm, that
Yeah, that was
that
before I
is
learned how to smooth
awesome."
the geometry before I printed it. So these
Oh, so
are
you could oh, okay.
yeah,
No,
so
but
we
dude,
can
that
actually
looks
remove that in prior to printing. And
and the
again,
sensors
oh,
on the shoulder?
right here,
Yeah, what is that exactly?
that is a dab of our neon paint, and I just went around the ring with a silver metallic
Silver?
Sharpie.
Dang,
So I mean,
that looks so good.
again, these are things that I do. I use the silver metallic Sharpie for the thrusters,
Yeah.
and once you seal them up in the top coat, it goes a long way into protecting it from rubbing off and things like that. So,
Oh,
and
man, yeah, that one looks good.
bonus
Is that,
points,
like, your favorite custom?
I think so. Second favorite, of course, would be this desert
Oh,
type Zaku
that's
Kai.
cool.
Now, this is if you're not comfortable using rattle cans at all or doing spray painting, you can hand paint a kit. This kit was 100% hand painted
Wow.
using just some model paints that it was actually. I think I've even got the color right here. Some yellow ochre Vallejo. Now, this is something that, I bought it online, but you could find this at a Hobby Lobby.
Yeah. In
Um,
fact, I think that's I have that paint, and I think I got it at Hobby Lobby. I bought a pack that just had a bunch of paints in there, so
but really, any kind of acrylic paint will do. I have painted kits using the Apple Barrel brand, which, you Walmart enthusiasts would be familiar with Apple Barrel products.
ah,
um, so yes, it is possible to use any kind of acrylic paints. The Vallejo stuff is nice because it's got a nice consistency already. You don't have to thin it down too much. If you are going to, be a full-blown cheapskate like me and use, you know, Walmart acrylic paints, you're going to have to water them down a lot more to get this consistency.
I see. Okay.
So,
That's something that I feel is one of those harder things to wrap your head around is understanding the consistency to get your paint at, so when you're applying it, it actually looks right. Yeah.
exactly. So I would say that this is probably a little bit more of an intermediate step, whereas doing just the rattle cans, you really don't, it's kind of set it and forget it. You can fudge that a little bit more. I would say that the rattle can spray painted kit was much easier than the hand painted kit, but the hand painted kit cost me less in materials because each of those
Mm,
cans is what, $5. So,
yeah, that's a
I've
good
got
point.
two tones of purple, that's $10 there, and then another $5 for the top coat, so that's like $15 versus, I think it was a total of $9 of paint.
Wow.
So
Huge difference.
everything's a trade-off, right?
Yeah. And I was even when I was getting into the airbrushing, one of my main things too was to save money by top coating with the airbrush. And I did it and it's possible.
Yeah.
It's just so much work for the outcome to be like, do I really want to every time mix just the right amount of gloss top coats, just spray for a little bit, and then, I got my whole kit out for that.
Right. I mean, it's like an hour prep, an hour
Yeah.
cleanup. You're maybe spraying for 15, 30 minutes.
Yep.
Um,
Exactly.
but the results speak for themselves. I think that obviously there's benefit to doing that, but if you're just
Yeah.
starting out, you're more likely to screw up something if you're trying to airbrush a top coat than if you just use something in a rattle can. At least that's
Yep.
my opinion.
No, that's completely true.
And now for tip number 4, this is going to sound funny, but cut your crotch.
Oh, cut your crotch.
So I always recommend this for high grade kits. Obviously, this doesn't apply to your master grades and real grades, but typically, when you've got your front skirts here, they are one piece, and they are usually a pair of ball joints attached here. Now, you could be fancy and use one of these little, Tamiya saws to cut it in half and do it cleanly, but I have found, now I would not use your nice hobby nippers for this. Use your cheap
Yeah.
ones. But you could even do it with a knife. You could just cut them down the middle. You know what? I could even, let's see. Do I have my? Here we go.
Use your fingers. Snap it. No.
Just bite it. Um, yeah. I mean, we've got a little box cutter here. We could just come down the middle. And the nice thing about these ones is that they're kind of already, um, they're designed to be cut. There are some older kits that do not have that sort of ball joint built into it, but you can still cut them and they still turn out pretty well. There
Yeah,
we
I've
go.
noticed that. Even I've noticed some manuals, and I don't know if it's just newer ones, will say to cut it, but most of the time they don't.
Yeah, they just they expect you to be smart.
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember when I first was building one and it didn't say to cut it, and I'm like, "Shouldn't I cut this? I don't wanna pose him and, like, when I move his front skirt up, like, both are up." That just
Now, in this particular example, this is the crotch piece from the Full Armor 7th Gundam.
7th. Cool.
This does not say to cut it, and in fact, it tells
Oh,
you when you're putting this piece together. This is an interesting one because it has these little notches. Let me see if I can highlight these on screen. It's got these little notches behind the skirts to prevent them from pushing all the way back against the leg, so they kind of like have a stop.
oh,
And the
yeah.
only way to actually get the skirt to fit in there is to tilt it upwards like this, slide it forward, and then bring it down. And that's what it tells you to do in the instruction manual. But I mean, you don't have to do that if you cut it. You can just put them in at whatever angle you want, and
Yeah,
and the
that's
stop still
interesting
works.
that they came up with that,
But
like,
I
over
appreciate
engineering.
that little stop. That's a pretty neat feature because you can even see on our previous kit, the kit bashed guy, what happens when the skirt
Oh,
goes too far back is like it starts to look a
good
little goofy.
point.
So,
Yeah, just so it doesn't you don't accidentally push it in too much and it looks odd, and I've thought about that too with some articulation. Why make it where something can articulate in a way that it wouldn't?
right.
But, at the same time, you would have to, like, engineer it for that reason, and then that would probably make it more expensive. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, and as we've learned from the last couple of streams that we've done, engineering's hard.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
building
yeah.
these parts to fit together in a way that is consistent and makes sense is actually pretty difficult. But yeah, that kind of rounds up the 4 major tips that I have. Although I will say this, I come on, I'm not going to leave you guys hanging with 30 minutes still left on stream. So I'm going to give you one bonus tip that that I came up with this morning is so you've got your sticker sheet here, right?
Yeah.
This is what you're going to do with
Burn it. Okay.
it.
I'm intrigued.
Don't use your sticker sheets.
Oh, okay. I thought that was some weathering technique that is gonna blow my mind. No,
No.
that's good.
No, I hate sticker sheets. I thought I'd leave you guys a little joke there.
No, it's funny with the stickers because the sometimes they're useful, but sometimes, like, the time for me in my opinion, where I hate them is when they are for that yellow, V crest on the crotch. Like, I
Oh
hate that.
yeah.
It's like, just please. Or on the Blue Destiny manga version antenna, it looks like a splayed hand, and then you just wrap the
Like
things
fold.
around, and it's like, "Why are you doing that?" But something else too that reminds me of, yeah, because if you're not using sticker sheets, what sticker sheets help with are having the specific dimensions you need in order to like replace that area with that specific color, being metallic or not. But just using there's some kits where I think I've detailed them without even using a brush, but using a toothpick because the
True.
area was so small enough and I just needed maybe the dot at the end of some of them, and it was able to get what I needed, those little colored details, but
Yeah.
without using a brush.
Because I think you did that with the RGM 79's Vulcans, right? Just a
Yes,
little
that's
dab of
right.
yellow.
Yep. Yeah, I
And
wonder
that's a
if I
huge detail. To be honest, I
and
think I
even,
left that
like,
out. Yeah, I didn't do
on
that one.
the no, not this one. Oh, yeah, here we go. I used so this is that, Slegger GM, and I don't know if that's actually focusing, but on the
There we go.
Vulcan at the top, I used the gunmetal, and I just
Very
put the
nice.
gunmetal on a toothpick, and then I just went in there and
Just
was able to get it, and it looks great. Like, and it's not like the thing that everyone's gonna notice,
right.
except for some people like Rogue New Type. I remember he was calling out, "Oh, you did that," and it's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's one of those things where, as a whole, it looks great. Yeah, actually, is this one where I think I cut out the sticker for the sensor on the chest?
Yeah.
If that shows up, but I wonder if having the marker, but then if the marker's too thick, do I bleed out some of the ink like onto a toothpick again, and then use the toothpick to do that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the toothpick detailing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
um,
lot of fun. And there's another thing to do with the toothpick. If maybe the area is a little bigger than just a dab of a toothpick, you can kind of do a thing where you coat the toothpick, and then when you put it on the surface, you spin it in your between your fingers, and that
yeah,
kind of helps like a roller get a good surface area. So
there you go.
that's
And again, you can get these at the grocery store. They're not
yeah.
they're not
And on Amazon, I
inaccessible.
think you can buy like in bulk. Like I have something I bought when I first started, and I still have it.
Exactly. So I
Yeah.
mean, you don't have to go and buy what like a 000 paintbrush from uh what's one of those I don't even know like a nice paintbrush brand because
I
I'm
don't know paintbrush brands. Yeah,
yeah.
that's
uh
That's not yeah. Um, Johnny Tacoma was saying you can use sandwich bags, as a plot plate?
oh, like the
Am I
bag
seeing
clips.
oh, bag okay, that heart, that new YouTube heart, they have in the chat, like, is blocking. Sandwich bag clips as a plot plate. Oh, yeah, that
That's true. I mean, you can get away with a lot of different things as plot plate. In fact, I think once on stream we even used a razor blade to cut the the little tops off of Legos.
oh, yeah, that's
And
right.
shoot, if you have the right color, you could make that into a mono eye. Like,
So, that's a good point because, with these tips, it's like, what are kind of the easy baseline things you can do with everything you have at home? And technically, you have razor blades and Legos at home that might seem advanced or scary, but if you're being careful with that, it's like, yeah, you could almost find any, yeah, between the sandwich bag clips, Legos, you could almost find anything to sort of, yeah, especially if you got your super glue and then your paint, you could
oh yeah,
really find anything to like level up your kit in any way.
very true.
E- Even if you were
Now,
to,
disclaimer, I'm not telling kids to like go raid their kitchen like utility drawer and pull out
yeah,
razor blades and
yeah, I know exactly. That's the scary part. But it's interesting because even with the kit bashing element, like we typically think of kit bashing as taking parts and replacing them. But what if you took little greebles of
oh yeah.
parts and just glued them or stuck them to areas where you're not necessarily replacing a part, but add like how they built the Millennium Falcon or
Yeah.
Death Star.
One of my first sort of kit bashes, I took a ground type high grade GM and I took parts from a circuit board and I popped off the
Oh,
little I mean here it was from an old, what was it? It's sad that Radio Shack's not around anymore because you can't just buy,
Yeah, random
random
electronic.
electronic
Yeah.
bits and bobs. But yeah, I mean, you can pop off some of these little, shoot, I don't even know what they're called, but
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Transistors?
transistors, resistors,
Capacitors? I'm just
all
saying
that.
words.
Yeah. But I mean, like to your point, that's how they made the Millennium Falcon. That's how they made
Yeah.
X-wing fighters, is by taking these little whatever you can find and just super gluing it to whatever you've got on hand.
Yeah, even that makes me think of, like, getting, like, what, bolts or screws and cutting off the ends and maybe gluing them to, like, a Zaku shield or something.
Oh
Like,
heck
that
yeah.
seems pretty sick. That because that would work.
So one thing, and I wish I had them handy to use as examples, but this is kind of a neat thing. Speaking of using random objects as plot plate, is we used to have those rolls of dog poop bags,
Oh,
you would
yeah.
use when you're walking your dog. And what's interesting is those are on a thin black plastic tube.
Yeah.
And if you put, just like a little cap of putty or something on one side of them, they make perfect propellant tanks for high grade
Oh,
kits. I mean, they're probably about twice the length of the Zazabee's
yeah.
propellant tanks. So they're probably about out to here, but it's the same diameter, same shape and everything.
Oh, that's pretty good.
You could easily, paint that, super glue it, and you've got propellant tanks on. You can make a, Thunderbolt version of any kit.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool, like, the idea of when they make a kit that has all these, like, exaggerated propellant tanks sticking out the back,
Yeah.
so that yeah, that's actually pretty cool.
Everyone's favorite double Zeta kit, the one with like five propellant tanks. It kind of looks like what is it? Is the Forbidden Gundam or Providence Gundam that's got the
Oh, yeah, that's right.
yeah
Yeah, one of those for Seed or something. Yeah,
yeah
that's
that
right.
goofy version of the double Zeta. So yeah, I mean that's really all I've got. Looking at chat to see what other recommendations people had. Like you said, sandwich bag clips as plot plate, always a good choice as long as you have something sharp enough to cut them. Really,
Yeah.
yeah, anything
Yeah, I
that you
saw
can.
Jay's 2 cents. He's a computer YouTuber, like, he's always reviewing computer parts. He reviewed this hobby tool that I've never seen before, and it was a saw, a hobby saw, but it was small, and
Oh,
I thinking about it, I'm like, "That's exactly for Gunpla." Like, he was just randomly cutting plastic tubes, but I'm like, "You know what? Like,
it's
that
like that
would be
mini
perfect
table
for."
saw, right?
It would be like a table saw, but it was just a weighted thing you just put down, and it's small. I would think a blade is about that round, and it just had an area where you could fit in any type of Gunpla part. And just thinking about it now, that would be a good way to easily cut parts, so you don't have to worry about, like, maybe sawing it or like messing around with some scissors and then your snippers, but like actually using uh, yeah, that would, especially if you're doing a diorama piece where you wanna be like, have a beam saber slice something off and then
Oh
put
yeah.
that, your famous glowing, paint, like, around the edge,
Oh
you
yeah.
know?
Get a little bit of that like object source lighting going on.
Yeah, yeah, that would look cool.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's another thing, with some of the random builds that we've done here, this LED that I harvested from a tea light.
Oh, yeah,
There's
that's a good one.
that yeah, that's an easy one. Which
Yeah.
yeah, I'm surprised I forgot to mention that. You can harvest LED lights from all kinds of tiny electronics and those tea lights are easy to work with, right? Because they're battery operated, they're very low voltage, so you don't have to worry about killing yourself. So those are pretty cool.
And, yeah, King Dylan is saying plastic bottles and caps, and I think that's a good point. In fact, you're working on a colony laser diorama from Zeta, and you've got those, was the Voss bottles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sad that they stopped making those in glass. So I had to settle for
Oh,
the plastic bottles, but
I
you know,
didn't know that. No, that's cool.
inflation
Yeah,
hits us
speaking of
all.
that, even, like, having things with water, how you
Oh
can do,
yeah.
like, colored water for whatever you're trying to do, making it look like something has fluid to it. Oh, yeah, that's made me think, like, piping, Xeon suits in general have a lot of that piping
Oh
going on,
yeah.
and you can use so many different types of material.
Do you know how many iPhone cables I have that are just cut like this, sitting around on my desk? That it's like, oh, I'm just gonna bend this around into a into a Xeon piping. So yeah, that's always a good option too. And the
Yeah.
best part is this is actually not even the wire. This is just the casing for the wire because I stripped the wires
Oh,
out
wow.
so that I could use them for, electronic applications. Then I was thinking to myself, hey, you've got some tubing that you can add to.
Yeah, that's good.
So yeah, there's so many things that so honestly, this list could go on. It could be
Yeah, it
it,
could.
it could be 40 things that you can use around the house. Maybe this is something that we need to expand into a larger, maybe like a
It
complete list.
Yeah, that's right, like a never growing list that we could have out there, but also that's an awesome video title, the 40 tips of, easiest things you could use from home
Yeah,
to
exactly.
build your
I
Gunpla.
see Johnny
Yeah.
Tacoma in chat mentioned Mod Podge. Mod Podge is great for adding liquid detail in dioramas. It is also great for one of my favorite sort of cheap hacks, which again, this probably should have made the list, but I didn't want to go into too much detail about all of the steps that are involved with it. But like for instance, how many of you guys want custom water slide decals, right? You would like buy the fancy paper and you have to use a special printer and all that stuff. I actually have one of my earliest videos on the channel was using a technique that involves Mod Podge, and you use like the Avery label paper, the stuff that you would print, return labels on, or
Oh,
the little
okay.
address stickers, things like that. You use that paper, and using a LaserJet printer, you print your decals onto the smooth surface, like the glossy part that's left over after you peel the labels off. And what you can do is you put a little Mod Podge on your kit and slap that paper down on it, and it leaves the ink from the LaserJet printer. So you can make your own custom decals,
Wow.
you know.
Like a stamp, pretty
Just
much,
yeah,
right?
yeah, like if you have one of the older Hyakushikis, these guys come with like a little rub-on decal transfer, which personally,
Oh,
unpopular opinion, I actually prefer the rub-on,
the dry transfer,
yeah,
isn't
the
that what they
dry
call it?
transfer decals.
I mess those up too much. Like, because I think it's like you gotta, like, I guess depending on the kit, like, tape them in place.
Oh yeah.
Because I think the Mark II 2.0 Master Grade came with those, and
Mhm.
I ordered water slides 'cause I was messing it up.
Now, the cool thing about that is, if you mess them up and you're gonna weather the kit anyway, it just kind of looks like it's distressed.
True,
So
true.
that's what I did with. I have the Master Grade EZ8 that came with the dry transfers,
Ah, yeah.
and I think that that's one of the reasons that I like this sort of home hack of printing out the decals on label paper is because it reminds me of doing the dry transfers. Not
Mm,
only in that, you know, you can screw it up the same way. If you smudge it, it's gonna ruin it.
yeah,
But yeah, I think that it leaves like a nice, perfect. There's no one of the things that always annoys me about even the nicest water slides, you're still gonna have that little clear, faint border
I
around it.
know.
Um, and then even with
Sometimes
these
that goes away
guys,
with the top coat. Yeah,
yeah,
right, yeah, exactly. And yeah, sometimes it goes away with the top coat, but really, that's the one downside. Rogue was saying he's terrible with water slides, and, like, I think the key to a water slide decal is actually making the surface wet to a degree where it's not, um the surface tension isn't it allow it to build up into blobs. You want it to be where it's like a moist surface,
yeah,
because then when you put it down it allows you to move it however you want, and then I get a Q-tip to just soak up the rest of that, and
yeah,
it works out great. But if you don't have the surface moist, and if there's blobs of water, it's going to just cause problems. But one time I bought off eBay some water slides, and I think I showed this on the Discord, where the decals weren't individual decals. It was just one giant water slide. And it's like, how am I going to do that? It's like I have to
you have
cut
to,
them all out,
yep,
and then even when it's like I'd have to individually cut it to the size I'd want.
yeah.
And because anything left over would show up on the kit, and oh, that was so annoying. So yeah, it's made me think water slides aren't the best, but they're almost the best option.
Now, I will
But
say this. Let me
yeah,
offer a comparison
sure.
because here I've got high grade Gundam Mark II that I added some water slides to, and I'm just going to compare them visually to the water slides that I applied to the Eric Blanc Zaku because, like you said, surface matters.
Yeah,
So here, if we take a close look at the Titan's insignia on the shield, I want to try and get this in as clear focus as possible. So you can see where the clear, border of that, and it's a super dusty kit, obviously. You can see where the clear border of that Titan's
yeah,
insignia is. And then if we were to look at the shoulder, that looks a little bit better. Now this
yeah,
has been top coated, so any kind of we did our best to reduce the appearance of that. But even on there, you can kind of see on the, I guess it would be my right, you can see right above the little notch on the two, there's that little faint clear on the
yeah.
divot here on the kneecap. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that in focus. It's just too small. But suffice to say, this was an unpainted kit that we applied water slide decals to. Let's compare that to the rattle can painted Eric Blanc Zaku. Let's see if we can get that guy in focus. Come on now. Because I think that the
The
appearance
surface
of water
matters when like hiding that outline. You're saying?
yeah, I think that the appearance of water slides is greatly reduced by a proper coat of paint and then top coat on top of it. If I could ever get this thing into focus on us. There we go. So yeah, I mean that is, I would say, practically invisible.
Yeah. So, and is that one where you had a top coat before you put the decals on and then a coat on top, or
Yes.
okay.
Just a yeah, top coat to seal in the paint because I didn't want to chip it. um,
Ah, okay. Nice.
but even like the shoulders, I don't think that I top coated the shoulders. But yeah, no insignia or
Yeah,
the
that looks
Xeon
good.
insignia looks good. No. So yeah, and this one I actually did something unique was the stripes are not painted. Those were actually done using the decal paper. So
Oh,
with
wow.
those decal sheets, I just cut off the leftover parts of it that are white and wrapped it around the leg, and you get like pretty smooth looking stripe that we don't have to paint. We didn't have to do um any masking or anything like that. So
Yeah.
that's another good tip. Is even decal paper that you haven't printed on, you can do some cool stuff with that.
So I have this micro sole, and it's for like, and it says setting solution for decals softens decals so they conform to regular surfaces for a painted on look. But I have never got it to really make a difference
Really?
ever. Yeah, I don't know if I'm doing it wrong, but I would get the put it on a Q-tip, roll it across, kind of wait, nothing.
Yeah.
So maybe again, it matters the surface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always going to be the case, whether you're going on bare plastic or a painted surface. And then, like you said, even the texture of the paint, whether it's a gloss finish, a satin finish, that's always going to make a huge difference to how
Yeah.
well you can blend in the edges. But again, stuff that you don't have to worry about with the rub on, the dry
Yeah,
transfers.
that's true. You know what though? There has to be some new technology, and we see this. I know I've been seeing this with modern Hasbro action figures. I think Mattel too, where they do that sort of the real type or not real type. They have a name for it, but it's like where they are stamping
Oh,
paint onto action figures now.
that has been a that's been a goal of mine, and I think we talked about this on a previous episode where I was trying to 3D print Xeon insignia stamps
Oh,
and then
yeah.
cast
That's
them in
right.
silicone so that we could like basically just stamp a,
Stamp.
you know,
Yeah.
that's still a project that I'd like to achieve. But substrate printing, like hard substrate printing, is something that is, I'm surprised doesn't have home applications yet. Like we have home 3D printing, we have home laser cutting. You can even,
Mhm.
if you have enough money, you can buy a home injection molding machine. But we don't have hard substrate printing accessible to people, in the hobby and home space yet. It's still pretty expensive. I think I'm
How does it work? Is it like where you have to have some sort of tool that is it shooting out a pattern, or, do you have the tool itself has to be the pattern?
There are different types of it. Usually involves, tooling a print plate. So some of the ones that I've seen, and
Mm.
this is because I work in an industry where we print on golf balls.
Oh, okay.
So they use like a rubber stamp technique where they have a print plate that holds ink, right? And then the rubber stamp will pick up the ink that has the sort of marking that you want to apply to your product. And then because it's an irregular surface, when the rubber touches, like that rubber stamp touches the product, it conforms around it and then pulls it up. You've probably seen videos
Mm,
on Instagram or
probably.
TikTok of like people printing graphics on bowls and things like that, and they have like this massive rubber stamp that they like stamp it onto a pattern and then they pull the pattern up and then stamp it onto
And
a
oh,
bowl.
yeah. You know what? I'm starting to remember now. I think it's called a 3D printing, 3D print tech that Hasbro uses. And I remember if you look real closely, like on a character's face, like if they're trying to make it look like Mark Hamill or Harrison Ford,
Yeah,
it's almost like a comic book where you see all these little dots.
that's crazy.
And so far away, you don't see it, but up close. So it's almost like some system where it's it's painting maybe dots across it, and it just knows what color what dot is what color. Uh, that's the only thing I can think of. Yeah,
Yeah, that's wild. See,
yeah.
and us home hobby toy manufacturers just have to catch up and
I, I know. I mean, that I think would help so much with Gunpla. If I could
yeah.
have that type of technology when I'm painting, to not have to worry about all the little things that I don't have to worry about: paint consistency, the textures, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it evolves across a lot of different industries. Like even like the shirt you're wearing, the difference between screen printing
Oh,
and direct to garment printing and things like that.
yeah.
They've made some amazing strides when it comes to, t-shirt printing technology. And so, same thing when it comes to printing on plastic.
Yeah.
But until then, we are reduced to using Sharpies and and paint pens and such.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that about covers everything that I wanted to talk about. Like I said, we kind of flew through the four major tips that I had that hopefully you guys, hopefully find some value in them and enjoy
Oh, yeah.
just a little bit of chatting about Gunpla. Like I said, it's been a pretty cool Gunpla week for us. So,
Yeah.
I think that, and these are things that people don't generally talk about, right? They always want to go straight to airbrush and,
Yep.
it's like let's start small. Let's get people into the hobby slowly and with confidence so that they're not diving into something that is overly complex and they're likely to fail.
And
Um
just give up, you
right,
know?
yeah. I mean that would be the
Yeah.
worst thing. I've had an airbrush for years that I never touched because the first time I airbrushed I screwed stuff up. So that said,
Wow.
it's always nice when you get some early wins. you know,
Yeah.
what do they call that in boxing where they set up a fighter with some easy like squash opponents so that they can
Oh,
like,
I
hype them up, build their confidence. That's all I'm encouraging people to do here is, before you go and get on Hobby Link Japan or whatever your preferred site, New Type, USA Gundam Store, whatever store you like to shop on online and buy up all of these fancy products, just start with some of the stuff that you have around your house. Go, hit up a Walmart, hit up your local hobby shop and pick up, just some basic tools and see
yeah.
what you're comfortable doing before you and as always, test everything. You do your cheap kits before you go, butchering a master
Yeah, that's
grade.
a good idea.
So yeah, whatever it takes to kind of build your confidence and work your way up to the fancy stuff like the LEDs and all that good stuff.
Yep,
Good deal. Well, yeah, thank you guys so much for your tips in the chat. I see that, we've got a lot of great product recommendations from, softening agents and, again, chip clips. Who would have thought?
yeah, I know.
That's one I've never tried, but I'm about to go break some of my chip clips in the
Yeah,
kitchen. And
think of so many things made of plastic that could just be reused.
yeah, and you know what?
Don't
Better
really
that they
realize
be
it.
used on Gunpla than end up in the ocean.
Yeah, there
So
you go.
that's,
Let's
think
Gunpla
of the
Builder saving
turtles.
the earth. Yeah.
Yes. Think of the turtles and build better Gunpla. So yeah, guys, if you haven't checked it out, definitely watch Adam's video on the Detolf shelf. Which
Yep.
again, once you've done all these customizations to your Gunpla, you're gonna want to show them off. You're gonna want to have an anti-dust case so that they're not covered
Yep.
in dog hair like my kits are. So
Uh,
definitely take a look at that and tune into the Gundam Explained show tomorrow. Do you
yeah.
have any spoilers for us about what we're going to be talking about, or are we going to keep it a surprise?
Um, yeah, you know what? I don't know. I know there's gonna be some gaming talk, but other than that, just what some recent news that's come out.
Yep. Yep.
I
There's
think, yeah.
which there hasn't been a whole lot. Gundam's kind of slowing. It's entering its
Yeah.
slow season, as you might say.
Yeah. After which for Mercury, waiting for the next thing to drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some more Requiem news, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you guys again so much for hanging out with us. Hope you guys got some value for us from this, and come hang out with us tomorrow for the Gundam Explained show.
Yep. See y'all.
Y'all take it easy.